Hi guys, welcome to the Sleeper Solutions YouTube channel. This will be my first video on the channel. I'm a little nervous, but it's going to be surrounded around doing some of the wiring for my 99 GT. It's a 2-valve 4.6 liter with a Terminator X and still using the factory computer to run just a few of the inputs like the factory fan, AC, cruise control, all the good stuff. A little bit about me. I like to build manual streetcars. This will be my second. My first one was an '08 GT that had a 2011 GT500 swap. That car was insane. It was basically an '08 shell and had everything replaced with it with all 11500 stuff. And the car was bone stock when I bought it. About around the time when it had blown up, we had went 10 flat at 142, stock motor, stock trans, stock rear end. And it was really impressive. Made probably around 850 wheel horsepower on E85. But since that motor blew up, the 5.4 stuff, it's really expensive. And the quotes I was getting everywhere were $20,000 to $27,000 to build an engine, which is a lot of money. But I thought, why don't I do something different? And that's where I came up with this. I've got this car here. When I bought it, it was rough. I bought it on election day of 2020, and this thing was bone stock, over 200,000 miles. Thankfully, the frame rails had no rust. That was the only reason I was even interested in it. I bought it for 2,500 bucks, and now I did an NA motor with the cams that are in here now. And then once that blew up, I thought, why don't I go all out? This car and everything for it is so cheap. I could strip it down to bare bones and build a faster car, a lighter car, more reliable car for less money than it would be just to put an engine in my one car. So that's where this came to. This is a NEMAC 3-valve block, so an aluminum block, stock. It's 20 over with diamond flat top pistons with valve reliefs. I believe they're Cobra I-beam rods or H-beam rods. Don't know the difference, don't really care. And then it's a Cobra crank. ARP everything, ARP 2000 for everything. These are stock 9-thread, stock port 9-thread heads with manually stamped valves, beehive valve springs, titanium retainers, GT500 followers, stock lifters, and Todd Warren cams, degreed by him. And it'll be an on-3 kit with a single S475 bullseye turbo. This thing is just insanely huge. I've been wanting to do this YouTube channel for so long, and I never really had the motivation for it. I had a really bad personal experience, and it really affected my life. And now I think I need to take all of the shots that I've been refusing to take. So, there's a bunch of stuff already done to this car. The rear end's built. It has a strange 31 spline axles with C-clip eliminators, Eaton True Track, 410 gears. What else? I went over the built motor. This will be a T56. I have a built T56 sitting over there. We'll have a QuickTime bell housing. Probably run a stock Cobra drive shaft. Hopefully that'll hold. Do a 4 Innovations fuel system, triple pump with a Cobra tank, so we don't have to worry about fuel level and all that stuff. I'll still have the baffles in the tank, all that good stuff. We're keeping AC, power steering. I mean, this is a street car, no question about it, and you need to keep that stuff. I know that guys that go on drag week, they have the fans in the right on the windshield. They're doing all this other stuff to stay cool. I know Cletus McFarland, they have that badass The cool vest, that stuff's so cool, but it's a little rich for my blood. It's easy, it's really easy actually to keep AC in this car. Even with doing the Terminator X, you can actually use the factory computer to run it all. Like even seeing this here, I don't have a jack right now. Buddy's using it, so otherwise I'd be tucking all this up. I've got a plan for how I want to put everything, but what you'll see in this video is how I have the stock engine harness depinned, ready to run everything kind of tucked the way I want to do it. You know, all the stuff that would typically be in right around the strut tower is taking up all this space. I'll show a picture of before and then after I cleaned it right now. And then I was able to move everything into the fender over there and over here, thankfully. You know, I've got a Motion Raceworks engine diaper on here as well, which I think everybody should, that races at all, whether it's autocross, you know, on the street. If you've got, you know, a built motor car or even a stock motor car, you should run one. You know, oiling down the track isn't fun for anyone, including you, especially if you have oil under your tire at 100 miles an hour. Not fun. You know, I'm gonna try to do this car literally by the book. And I'm not a professional by any means, but hopefully there's something interesting about what I do and how I'm gonna put this car together to where you guys will like it. You know, some other things too. Let's see. You know, it's got a tubular K member. We've got Viking front single adjustable shocks with coilovers, Maximum Motorsports camber caster plates. We've got the ATS-V, not the ATS-V, just the standard ATS brakes. We did the conversion kit from S&S Engineering. That stuff's sick. Love that brake setup. Then, what else we got? We got Viking double adjustable rear shocks. That should be helpful. We have the Holley 7-inch dash. You know, everything for the most part works. We're just kind of tidying up what we've got going on in here. The plans for this car, make 1,000 horsepower, trying to go 8s with a manual, still a street car. Hopefully it should weigh around 3,200 pounds, somewhere in that range. I think that's really achievable, and this should be a really good time. So we'll get hopped into this and see how you guys like it. So what we'll be doing here is the factory BCM harness runs across the radiator here, and we have all our ABS, I forget what this does, ground wire, headlight wire, and it runs across the core support. But with how I have the radiator and the AC condenser tucked back, this actually gets in the way. So if we actually break this down and wire loom it, it gives us a ton more room and allows us to run the harness the way that we want to. Now, as you can see, now that I've removed the big plastic thing, I can actually now tuck it behind, and I have much more slack versus where I had to follow whatever contours this had, but it'll give me the exact room that I need to tuck the harness back. So now that we've got our harness cut to length, our wire loom I mean, we can see where we overlap the old one, and you always kind of want to have like some slack that either can go on the inside just a smidge or even on the outside. Either way works, but as long as you have it secure so that no moisture, dirt, anything like that can't get in there. Now, the most important part about when you have to do something like this is your tape job. So the way that you have to tape this, it's nothing crazy. There's no insane technique. There's no wild way to do it. It's just, you got to slow down and take your time and just enjoy it. Otherwise, you'll be fighting it. All right, now we just finished taping it up. It's not the best, but it came out pretty good. So let's see how it fits. So guys, for right now, the radiator is a mock-up. I've had to move it back quite a bit, almost about an inch, just so that I can make the turbo kit work. But even then, I still need to have this center section fabbed. But let's plug the harness in, see how it tucks with everything, see if I can get it to line up in here. Got that all down. And then right here is the ABS hookup. Goes right in. I believe this is fan control 1. There, along with the ground wire for it. Then other ground wire goes there, along with the wire here. I believe we should be good. Looks like it tucks along there nicely. I have all this room now, which is good. Should still be able to connect to everything in here. Shouldn't be a problem. Probably gonna take the radiator out, rerun the harness through there if I can get around those brake lines, just so I have a little bit more slack. Should be good. Put the radiator back in. Make sure we're all set. Oh yeah, now I really have enough room, which is great. Because I really needed the slack on this side for a couple connectors that I have to run. And then over here I should have even more room, which is great. Okay, so since I don't have my jack right now, I'm gonna actually focus on the main PCM harness. This is all the stuff that you actually really need to keep on a 99 to 04 new edge to run the Holly, but still keep factory fan control, AC, and just a couple other things, just miscellaneous stuff like how to charge the alternator and other little things like the radio and such. So I've actually already depinned this. It wasn't too bad to do. You just take these red clips out and use a little screwdriver and you just pull the pins out one by one. I actually should have done a video on doing that. It was kind of interesting tearing down this old junk harness. But right now, how I want to do this, since this will be running together with the Holly, I wanted to match the loom that it's going to use so that it actually blends in right and doesn't look bad. I used regular plastic loom for the body harness because then that'll look OE, but with this, it'll make it look a little bit more aftermarket, which is what I'm kind of going for. So what we're gonna do is, we found out the orientation in which it goes. So now we are going to tape off small sections so that it can be split and then ran with the engine harness. The reason why I'm running it under the valley, I didn't really point it out, but with how I want to run this harness, I'm wanting to wire tuck it and have everything pretty much ran under the intake. Most 2-valve guys run a Victor Jr. intake manifold. That's what I'll be running if I can't have this custom manifold that I am working on having made through a buddy. He's gonna make some intake plates, and then I think me and the fab guy are gonna build something off of it, hopefully. But if that doesn't happen, I'm planning to do the Victor Jr. So that's why I ran it under here like I did. So my Holley harness has actually been pre-ran. I cut a hole down in the firewall so that I could have it run out, and then the Holley is actually where the passenger airbag used to be. But since I'll be running it this way, I'll be able to pull up the coolant sensor around cylinder, I think this is 1. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so that would be coming up through here, and then I would short it accordingly and put it about here. Because on the 2 valves, there used to be 2 sensors on the older models. So what I'll be doing is the Holley will see 1 sensor over here, and then the stock PCM will see another sensor over here, which is this one, so that I can control the fan without wasting an input. I believe this is for the radio suppressor. I wish somebody could tell me in the comments. I have no idea. I know these are the ignition silencers, which are wired through the Holley factory, but I believe this is like the ground for the radio or something, because I didn't have this hooked up when I had this car NA with just these cams, but my radio wouldn't turn on, and I didn't know what this plug was until I had already pulled the motor out. This is something for the charging system. I don't know exactly what it does, but I know that it plugs into that harness over there, and I have to keep it. I most likely have to extend it. Hopefully I can run it just behind the alternator here, sneak it along down with the oil pressure sensor from the Holley harness. And then the other thing that I have right here is the crank sensor. I will have to splice this into the Holley harness so that it sees RPM for the AC to work. And then this is actually the AC compressor clutch switch. The cool thing is that, you know, even though 99% of the harness is gone, only keeping these few things should allow the car to operate like factory, which is really neat. And the AC should be controlled through reading this RPM, this pressure switch, and the CCRM that's inside of here, the constant control relay module. But it looks like I got it all tucked up, and I've marked where I need to cut the harness because this is a little bit longer since this is factory length. So let's get to looming that. How this came out, really. I'm gonna be cutting this, but I'll be splicing it in once I do the Holley harness completely. Which actually, that's some of the stuff I want to do right now. Yeah, there's no way I can even be upset with this in any way. Just hook the stud on the alternator right there if it will reach. Route this sensor back here. Route this sensor over there. Hook this along the timing cover. And then run it down this way. I can't even complain about that. That looks perfect. Damn near perfect. Now I think I should run the rest of the Holley and get it all situated to see how everything turns out. I've had my main power harness here. I think I'm gonna redo that when I do the video on the battery relocation, because that'll be a whole thing in itself. I've got some of the trans harness connectors here. These will go in their factory spots. I thought about tucking them inside of the fender wall here, but might as well not, since, you know, there's really no point. Like this right here. All run. I think this is the vacuum line for the stock computer. Maybe, I don't know if the PCMC's vacuum on these things or not. I'm going to use low dollar sensors with these, since, you know, they're local here, plus everybody around the world seems to love their stuff. I really would like to run their limiter, their shock travel limiter sensors. I just don't know if I'll run out of, if I'll have space for an input, but I got all of their stuff, and I've actually depinned the connectors that I need to use, like oil pressure, fuel pressure, dome pressure, boost pressure. The car will also be using onboard air, because that'll be the proper way to control boost with this huge turbo. But let's see how, I've got like an idea of how I'm gonna run the oil pressure down here, because the oil pressure is in the stock location along with the turbo feed, because I want to run at least an oil cooler of some sort in the front, right about where the mouth is on the bumper, along with, I'm gonna run hard lines, crimp fittings actually, that you would use like on like a forklift, because this is technically a hydraulic pump, so it sees about the same pressure on the high side, but not as much on the low side. So I wanted to get those right, and I can actually tuck them out of the way so you don't see them. I got a an AN kit from Power by the Hour so that I can adapt all of the fittings to AN. And then I need to have those lines made and make sure everything tucks right. And once all of the AN lines are ran for the power steering, the Holley's pretty much like hooked up, the oil system, the oil cooler's all like ran, and I get the trans in just for mock-up, which will set the engine at the angle that it's supposed to be at. I can have Scott weld onto the hot side and remake it. We don't have to change a ton, thankfully, but the turbo's just a little too big and it hits about right here. So like I was saying before too, I just want to make everything look nice and neat, get it out of the way, because at the end of the day, you know, I want this to be as nice as it possibly can be and still run everything. You know, you get limited on room and space and all sorts of other things, but as long as there's a way to, you know, tuck everything, get it out of the way, it helps so much when you have to work on the car, you know, during a race event, stuff like that.